Welcome to Entrepreneurs, Business, and Finance. Today, we are fortunate enough to have on the show Mr. Bob Fox. Welcome, Bob. How are you?
Hi, Henry.
So, Bob is out of New Jersey, and since I know Bob fairly well, I know that we've talked, and he spent his whole life in New Jersey. And he is an entrepreneur. He is self-employed, and that's part of the interesting story about Bob's career. He's a family man with kids and a wife. And how far away do you live from where you grew up, Bob?
It's probably 50 miles south. So right now we're near the beach. We moved down closer to the beach in New Jersey, and we love it.
Yeah. What's not to love about the beach? So when you grew up as a child, did you ever think you'd be self-employed, or did you think you'd be working for a big company, or did you even think about it?
I actually always thought I'd be a lawyer. That was the
Okay.
plan. Yeah, until I into college. And then at the last minute, I decided, you know what? I don't want to be a lawyer and went into finance for some reason. Just caught my eye. I took a class and I loved it, and that was it. I was off.
Did you have an idea what you would do in finance, or you just thought, well, this is
No
this is
idea.
me?
No
What?
idea. I actually had a double major, finance and political science. So one day I saw an ad for a job at Paine Webber and I went for an interview and they liked my name. That's the only reason I got the job.
I took a course in economics, and I fell in love with economics too, and then later finance. But yeah, when you find something that's interesting to you, and you've been in finance then in one way or another, dealing with money, other people's money, businesses for your whole career.
That's correct. I'll tell you something that's funny, actually, when they liked my name because the movie Wall Street had just come out and the Charlie Sheen's name was Bud Fox. So it was pretty hard in the beginning. People used to just hang up the phone. Yeah, funny. Nice try. When I called and said, this is Bob Fox.
Right.
I guess they thought I was saying Bud Fox and they would just hang up the phone. Very funny. And there was a lot of complaints. People are calling me from your firm saying they're Bud Fox from Wall Street.
That is a crazy story.
Yeah.
Yeah. And those
So,
were the days when you start out cold calling people, right? We
yes,
didn't have,
at Paine Webber, cold
yeah,
calling. That's what it
yeah,
was for very,
yeah.
very little pay. Long hours and very little pay. So I worked on the weekends at a place called Top's Appliance. I actually made more money on the weekend at Top's Appliance than I did cold calling. 40 out, 50 hours a week. Yeah, selling TVs.
Oh, oh. And then one day you got tired of Wall Street, or what made you shift away
Yeah,
from,
later on, I just got tired of it and decided that I just, had the urge to have my own business. And here's some good advice. Make sure you know what you're doing before you leave your job, or what business you're buying, or something like what your plans are for the future before you leave your job, which I did not do. I figured I'll just go buy a business. That'll be easy. And Henry, it was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. 2 years of just looking at nonsense and people lying about their business. The numbers didn't make sense, or it's not easy to find a good business. And that's another good piece of advice. Don't rush into it. Take your time if you're looking for a business, and make sure you're passionate about that industry. Way too many people call me and say, well, I want a business, but I'm not sure what industry. And they'll just go do anything. But then they find out they really don't like it. Right. And, now they've come back to me 5 months later and want to resell it, and you don't have a job. You quit your job, you bought a business, and then you don't like it, and you decide, you know what, I don't like this anymore. Now you're really stuck. So I'm not trying to talk people out of buying a business, but don't make that mistake of just buying the first thing hey, that looks good. Let me buy that one. Make sure you know what you want to do.
so you were there working on that for 2 years, and I'm guessing that your wife was jokingly ready to slap you across the
Absolutely. Kick
face.
me out of the house. Couldn't
But she
find any,
didn't.
couldn't find
She didn't.
anything to buy. And that's when I decided, you know what? I'm going to be a business broker and help people buy and sell businesses, and I can weed through the nonsense. You know, I would see some companies that, apparently made more money in profits than they did in sales, which is pretty hard to do. But that's what they would tell me anyway, or have down on paper. I said, that's pretty hard to do. You made more than you did in sales. So that's the type of things you would see sometimes. But yeah, it's great. It's great helping people find the right business.
So how in the world do you find someone that wants to buy a business, and then how do you find the business for them? What's that process look
The
like?
real easy part is finding someone that wants to buy a business. They're everywhere. There's no shortage of that. There's tens of thousands in every state that want to buy a business. The hard part is finding the business for sale that's, worth buying, really, to be honest with you. But they're out there also, the sellers. A lot of times it's mom and pop that's just retiring down to Florida, that's been in the business for, 40 years, 50 years, and decides enough and up. Those are the best ones. But there's always something out there. You just keep looking, looking, looking. There's something out there.
Now, what are some of the businesses that you help people find and
Oh,
buy?
there's, always gas stations, convenience stores, restaurants, liquor stores are always big, endless types of different small businesses, laundromats, things like that. Not the real, the larger ones are much more complicated and the average person can't buy it. Let's put it that way. Way off the chart. These are businesses that range from 250,000 to, 2 million, in that
Sure.
range. Just the bulk of it. They're everywhere. And they're out there. The COVID was really a disaster for small business. I think big business still did great during COVID, but small business, it was a disaster, unfortunately. But it's definitely come back. The restaurants are just on fire since we got back from COVID. Everybody decided they want to go be outside and eat now. So the restaurants have been doing tremendous business.
So do you have an agreement with them if they want to buy a business and you sign them up on a contract and
Well,
uh,
you sign the seller, the individual that wants to sell the business. You would sign a contract with him. He gives you the listing for, you know, 6 months, a year, whatever. An exclusive listing is the one you want, where you are the only broker that can sell it, show it, and sell it. Otherwise, it's kind of a free for all. And, you've got to be discreet. A lot of businesses, you have to be discreet and show it on off hours. You don't want the employees to know it's for sale. That could be a disaster. They start leaving if they know the business is for sale, and you don't want that. So you have to be very discreet about it and do it the right way. And hopefully the buyers who are all competing for it don't start sneaking in there and poking around themselves, which can lead to trouble. But yeah, that's the competitive part about it. Finding the individuals that want to sell their business. The buyers are everywhere.
and then you have to, there's so many things. I've bought and sold businesses. One of the guys we had on the podcast, Alex Vantarakis, he owns the Bank Group and he has brokers and that's all they do is help people sell their businesses. And one of the things is always, yeah, the guy that's selling, how long is he going to stay on and help with the
Right.
buyer?
Transition.
And
Yeah.
and when are the payments going to be made? Is this you know, 3 years or one payment and a holdback and close in 3 months after the transition period? Or there's so many different things that go into the sales process. It's not like you walk in and buy a car, do you want financing? Here's the price, drive
Yeah.
away.
There's a
Um,
lot of deals that fall apart at the last minute because one party decides I'm going to change the terms. But ideally, you would want an all cash buyer because, if I'm a seller and I'm not looking forward to having just payments made to me. What if he, decides he doesn't like it, this and that, and I've already moved to Florida? Now what? And I have to take the business back. What do I do now?
yeah,
Right? That's the nightmare scenario. So ideally, you want an all cash buyer.
you might run down the business too, and then
Absolutely.
you
They
ruin the
hand you back
value.
something that's, what is this? This isn't
Right,
what you bought from me.
right, right,
Yeah,
right.
those scenarios happen, but most of the time we look for somebody. I really push for a buyer that can, one payment.
Yeah, makes it cleaner and more likely to succeed.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. You don't want the headaches. Nobody wants that. So,
And so I guess you trained yourself. I mean, obviously you had financial background, you were doing business at Paine Webber, but you trained yourself how to analyze companies with your 2 year research to try to find your own business.
yeah, you know what? It's not as hard as people think it is. There's kind of formulas, right, for what a business should sell for. You get an idea. Of course, everybody thinks it's worth more than what it really is, but the market will determine what your business is worth, right? You could ask whatever you want for it. It's like, put something on eBay. You could put it out there for $1 million, but whatever but the market will determine it. But it's just realistic. Are the numbers realistic? Uh, people sometimes leave out the employees as far as, one of their expenses. Well, you have employees, right? And another big thing is, are you going to be working there? Are you going to be, running the show? Which I always encourage people to do. Don't think someone else is going to run it for you. But yeah, it's not that hard to analyze it. It really isn't. Just be realistic and make sure they're giving you the right numbers and the numbers make sense, and maybe even spend a week watching the business and seeing what's going on. And, it's not that hard to figure out if it's nonsense or if it's real.
And I suppose one of the things that I know happens if someone comes to you and they want to sell their business, you've got to give them an evaluation of what you think you can sell it for. And other folks will come along because I've experienced this, and they'll promise the moon, not be realistic, and
To get the listing,
uh,
right?
to get the listing.
Right. Correct.
Yeah. So you're
Yeah.
up against that, and sometimes they can be convincing, and people buy into it, and then later they'll say, "Oh, well, the market's changed," or this, that, or the
Right, and
other.
real estate brokers do that. Everybody will do that. But you just really, and you know what? The word will get around. The word will get around that that's what you do. And because you're not going to sell it for that price. I mean, your average, not everything, but for the most part, your average business is going to sell for, roughly 2 times your net. Plus all the, any furnitures, fixtures, things like that. But 2 times net is very realistic.
Yeah.
You start in that ballpark. That's a good starting point right around there.
The type of businesses you talked about earlier, the laundromats, the restaurants,
Well,
the
the ones,
stores.
yeah, there's definitely, there's different situation, but that's a good one, a good way
Yeah.
to start.
So then you branched out into more deal making. One of them is oil and gas. So how did
Yes.
that come? How did that come about?
A friend of mine told me about, well, I didn't know anything about it. And trying to remember what year it was, but I know oil was around $40, right around there. And he was very smart guy. He was telling me how much higher oil is going to go. And he said, get into oil. It's great. There's a lot of people, you can get into these projects. I didn't know anything. I said, what do you mean get into oil? Buy stock? I don't know anything about it. And he explained how the history of it, how there's thousands and thousands of good companies, small companies or individuals that are looking to do oil projects, and they can't borrow money from the banks. So since the 1800s, that's the way it's been done. They set up a project, they want to drill 1 well, 2 wells, 10 wells, and you buy interest in it, percentage ownership in it. You share in the risk and you share in the reward. And it's great. And it's something it's cheap. Yeah, I don't. It's money. Nobody wants to lose money, but you don't have to put up $1 million. You don't have to put up $500,000. And I think it's great for people that want to speculate and get into the oil business.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, that's the type of thing that keeps us energy producing in this country and keeps people finding new oil and gas and
That's why we
going
have the
on.
tremendous tax cuts, right? They put in those great, not tax cuts, tax breaks that you get when you get into oil and gas. That was put into promote the oil and gas business and get more people into it.
So you're very entrepreneurial. I think some people would find it intimidating to say, okay, I'm going to get in the oil and gas business and then just go ahead and get in it.
Well, yeah,
So
it's not that easy. I actually, I when I first got into it, I was introduced to an individual out in California, a great guy. I won't go with any names, but a great guy, very, very wealthy man. And he had been investing in oil and gas for over 40 years. He knew the business inside out and upside down. And we got to be good friends. And anytime I had a question, he just taught me everything. I probably would have never done it if it wasn't for him, because he just taught me all the little tricks that companies can use and how they hide money and all the ins and outs of the business. And if I ever wanted to know about, hey, what do you ever hear of these guys? You ever hear of these guys? He could tell me. Or if he didn't know, he knew somebody that knew. Stay away from them, or yeah, they're good guys, things like that. And it's all about who you're dealing with in the oil and gas business. And I don't mean, because they hit oil every single time they drill. Exxon doesn't do that, right?
right,
Are they legitimate good guys that have been around a long time and are really drilling the wells and want to hit oil. That's really what it comes down to. Yeah, but if it wasn't for meeting that individual, I probably would have never done it, because it's not that easy of a business, figure out who the good guys are and who to stay away from. And you don't want to learn the hard way.
Yeah, hard way. That's right.
Yeah.
Is that kind of your plan going forward? Is oil and gas business? Maybe some business sales as they come your way, but it looks like you're not pursuing that as aggressively
Well,
anymore.
I do also do the business brokerage now, but for individuals that don't, but too many people want to buy a business with $10,000 or $25,000. And I tell you can't do it. They feel like I'm, stepping on their dream, but I'm trying to help them. When I tell them you don't have enough money, you probably need at least, I say at least 250,000 in liquid money to think about buying a business, even if it only costs, a lot less than that. You're going to need a lot of extra wiggle room, money put aside for when you start out in it, things like that. So it's not for everyone buying a small business, and too many people just jump in and want to do it and tell me they're sick of the pressure at work. And I tell them, you think that's pressure? Buy your own business, right? And realize, I can't make payroll on Friday. That's the pressure right there. But yeah, I'll absolutely still do that. The buying and selling of businesses. So both, they kind of intertwine.
We're going to look back and talk about what helped you be successful. I'm just listening to you talk about how a lot of people have helped you. So you must, and I know this about you, but you're good at getting to know people and building a relationship and being a straightforward, honest person to deal with. And that goes a long way. Because like you said, if you hadn't found a guy investing in oil and gas in 40 years to mentor you, you might well have learned the hard way. Well, you were been smart enough not to do it, as you said. But there's a lot of people that would like to have those opportunities, but they didn't have the right relationship, they didn't have the right personality, they didn't have the right experience, maybe the right drive, work ethic.
Well, I think too many of them, and I'm not knocking people, but I've seen it firsthand. They don't realize this is somebody I should listen to, right? They don't take advice or listen to people who have been through it all and done it all and know what they're talking about, right? They were you at one point. And it's so important. They just blow it off and no, 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 and just don't realize, hey, that's a gold mine right there, listening to that person. A man that's been doing it over 40 years and knew everybody in the business. How could you not listen to him? Right. And I think too many people don't do that. They don't listen to good advice, and maybe they don't realize it's good advice, but you should start listening when you find somebody, and you also have to realize who should I be listening to and who should I not be listening to. But that I think everybody can figure out with their gut instinct, right? But yeah, just if you find somebody that's done it all, been there, done that, at least listen, hear them out, and you'll learn something. That's for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, and I know that you're a sports fan. I think you might even call yourself a sports nut, sports enthusiasm. What's that word? Enthusiastic sports person. Yeah. What kind of sports? All sports?
Yeah, football, baseball, hockey, UFC. We've had in my family, we've had New York Giants football season tickets since 1959.
Wow.
So going back a long time. Yeah,
Yeah.
my father bought them with a bunch of friends way back. They bought them because the 1958 championship game, Giants Colts, was blacked out in New York. So they had to drive to Connecticut to watch the championship game. And that's when they decided we're getting season tickets, and they've been in the family ever since.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I like them
Well,
all.
well, you've answered a lot of the questions that I ask sometimes without me even asking them. What's some challenges you've been through? What's some advice you would give? But if there's anything else you want to add before we wrap up about your success in business, your plans in the future.
Well, I would just say you asked about, or you had mentioned being an entrepreneur, things like that. Don't work, you can't work 9 to 5 being an entrepreneur. You have to work, 12 to 12, pretty much, basically, right? I've seen people, I've worked with guys that, didn't want to take a phone call at 5 to 5 because, well, I leave at 5 o'clock, right? I'm done. And I'm thinking, are you crazy? right? You're in sales and it's 5 to 5. You're not going to stay an extra, whatever, half hour, possibly have a big new client, things like that, right? I see that all the time. You just have to be prepared to be working 24/7 pretty much, right? Just go out on a Sunday night. As a business broker, the first sale I ever did, I just sat down to dinner on a Sunday night, freezing cold. I believe it was February, freezing cold. And my phone starts ringing. It's about 6:30, pitch dark already. And somebody wants to see a laundromat. And I took the call. All right. I showed him the laundromat and on a Sunday night and he bought it. That's, you know, kind of the type of things you have to do. 99 out of 100, they're not going to buy it right then and there. Right. But you never know. You never know. And that person went on to buy 4 more laundromats. So it was well worth it. Let's put it that way. It was well worth it. You never know. You never know what that phone call is.
Wow, that's a good, inspiring.
It's something I always remember, right? And that was how many years ago? But you're never going to forget that. I can't tell you, really remember much of any other specific ones, but that one I'll always remember. And it
Right,
keeps
right,
you motivated. Just always remember that one. It'll keep you motivated. This could be the next person just like that.
right, right, right. Well, hey, well, fantastic, Bob. I really appreciate you coming on the show. Thanks again, and
Uh,
we'll be in touch about business before too long.
Thank you. Have a great day.